I can't even connect to the service on my phone, and my notes are gone, is what I'm building up to. So I have no notes with me. We'll see how well I can remember the things I wanted to say. Yeah, I guess you could say technical difficulties. That'd be fine. In my head, this is just further justification for my enthusiasm for the Luddite philosophy, that we should all just go back to doing things by pen and paper and forget all of this ridiculous internet nonsense. However, I think probably most people will just simply see this as a temporary setback, and we'll be back to using technology shortly. But we're going to do Psalm 94 today. There won't be much of anything behind me on the screen except for what you see now, for the most part, unless it comes back midway through. We'll see. But we will read it. We will talk about it. We can still do these things even without the internet. So, yeah, we'll begin. So before we actually dive in and read it, we'll start with a word of prayer. So if you'd pray with me, please. Father in heaven, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this world that you have made. We are grateful to you for being the glorious God and Creator that you are. We are grateful also, Father, for this opportunity that we have, the time to spend with one another, discussing your word, for reading from it. We ask that you would help us to think about it in a way that gives us a better understanding of your will for our lives and how we can lead lives that are glorious to you, that bring you the honor and glory that you deserve, that are rightfully yours. We are grateful to you, indeed, for being not just Creator, but Father to us, and kind and loving, and sending your Son, Jesus, as a gift, as a sacrifice on our behalf. For this greatest gift of all, we say these prayers, we give you the thanks and honor that are yours, and we ask all these things in the name of your Son, Jesus. All right. In Psalm 94, we'll read through it. As I say, it might appear on the screen. Actually, that part should be simple enough, I would think, but we'll see what happens. Psalm 94, O Lord, the God who avenges, O God who avenges, shine forth. Rise up, O judge of the earth. Pay back to the proud what they deserve. How long will the wicked, O Lord, how long will the wicked be jubilant? They pour out arrogant words. All the evildoers are full of boasting. They crush your people, O Lord. They oppress your inheritance. They slay the widow and the alien. They murder the fatherless. They say, the Lord does not see. The God of Jacob pays no heed. Take heed, you senseless ones among the people. For you fools, when will you become wise? Does he who implanted the ear not hear? Does he who formed the eye not see? Does he who disciplines nations not punish? Does he who teaches man lack knowledge? The Lord knows the thoughts of man. He knows that they are futile. Blessed is the man you discipline, O Lord, the man you teach from your law. You grant him relief from days of trouble, till a pit is dug for the wicked. For the Lord will not reject his people. He will never forsake his inheritance. Judgment will again be founded on righteousness, and all the upright in heart will follow it. Who will rise up for me against the wicked? Who will take a stand for me against evildoers? Unless the Lord had given me help, I would soon have dwelt in the silence of death. When I said, my foot is slipping, your love, O Lord, supported me. When anxiety was great within me, your consolation brought joy to my soul. Can a corrupt throne be allied with you, one that brings on misery by its decrees? They band together against the righteous and condemn the innocent to death. But the Lord has become my fortress, and my God, the rock in whom I take refuge. He will repay them for their sins and destroy them for their wickedness. The Lord our God will destroy them. What is Psalm 94 about? Yeah, certainly there's petition to God and a praise. Is this a lament? It's a trick question. I'll warn you now. I think I heard it. I don't think so. That's probably the right answer. But maybe? Part of it?
I don't think it's a lament. It's like he's recognizing the power of God who's created everything. And who are we to question the greatness that he's done? I don't think it's a lament.
Yeah, it's not entirely a lament, certainly. There's an argument, and this is me trying desperately to remember my notes exactly, that this psalm could probably be best broken up into about 3 different sections. The first 7 verses, I think it was, or so, are really kind of a petition to God asking for him to do something. Right? It is almost an imprecatory psalm, asking for God to visit justice and judgment on the enemies of Israel. And then there's a kind of middle third from about 8 to, I think it was 15 or so, where it becomes a warning. Warning those that do evil that God's justice does not sleep, that he takes note of what is going on in the world, and there will be retribution for acts of evil. And then it shifts again from about 16 to 23, just a second. And at the end, it does become a kind of lament, a pouring out to God of troubles and asking for that help, ending with the confidence that God will indeed act. So, kind of, it's a lot of different things. Yeah?
May I stand and introduce myself?
If you wish to.
Hello, church. My name is Alex Richard Pickle. My nickname is Bull, and I use he, him pronouns. I was very anxious today to some man help me out, and I feel better now. I filled out a little card, so we could deliver to someone. And my comment about this is that God's justice is perfect.
Thank you.
So in this particular psalm, there are 3 kind of distinct sections that we can go through. And the first one is the idea of the retribution for the wicked. It's not strictly speaking an imprecatory psalm, perhaps. Right? We read the other ones where there is specifically throughout a request for God to visit some sort of punishment upon those who are foes. What is this psalm more like? Or what is it doing that is different from that kind of an imprecatory nature? Even in an imprecatory psalm, though, what is the motivation for the request? We feel a little bit uncomfortable, perhaps, when we read these.
Innocent to death.
I'm sorry?
It's like condemn the innocent to death.
Well, this is the things that are being done. What is the request or what is the desire of the psalmist? And kind of it's written as if it were a corporate congregational kind of address to God. Right? It begins by addressing him directly using the holy name. Right? In the NIV, they use the all caps Lord to indicate the use of the holy name Yahweh. It's a request for vengeance. Right? The word used here really is, right, in the NIV, the God who avenges, and then it repeats it in the second line for emphasis. Both 1 and 3, verses 1 and 3, use a repetition to further and more fully emphasize the necessity and the desperate nature of this request, right? The urgency of this request. But it is calling on God who avenges. Why might that make us feel a little uncomfortable? Yeah?
Because as a sinner, as we all are, except for Jesus, we're worried that vengeful eye will fall on us.
Okay. Well, there's certainly that possibility, right? I mean, this is kind of that Chestertonian notion. I was going to bring this up later, but we can bring it up now. That those who are innocent desire justice and those who are guilty desire mercy. Right? This is why fairy stories work the way they do. Children love the simplicity of the fairy story because they have innocent hearts and they like to see justice done at the end. You get to the end, the bad are punished, the good are rewarded, and all is right once again with the world. And we as adults feel like, oh, we're kind of growing out of that. That's not really how things are. But a lot of that desire for the grayness of the world comes from our own knowledge of our sinfulness, Chesterton argues, because knowing that we deserve justice, we crave mercy. God is a God who avenges. God is the God who pays back. We can be a little uncomfortable with this notion of invoking that because we know that those sorts of actions are not for us to take. I'm looking at the clock and I'm thinking, without my notes, I'm really going to run long. So please tell me to hustle up if there's stuff later that we need to get to. But we can think about vengeance as being bad in and of itself, right? The malum in se, the Latin legal tag. Bad in and of itself with no redeeming qualities, but it's not. It's not a bad thing. What it is not for us to do. God has reserved that for himself, not because it is wrong, but because we are not in a position to dispense justice or even to know fully what justice is. And with our ignorance, we are not good arbiters. Were you going to make another comment? Or?
I forgot it.
Oh, that's right. When it comes to you again, you just raise your hand.
You know I will.
So, the justice and the vengeance of God is something that is invoked here. What's also interesting, and I'm just going to speak about the psalm more generally here, the holy name is used frequently in this psalm. It's a little bit masked and hidden when you read through this in the NIV, and it's not as obvious. Maybe it's just me needing reading glasses, but it's not as obvious that there's as many of the use of the word Lord in all caps. There's a couple of abbreviations or shortenings of the holy name, the divine name, Yahweh, where it's just used as Yah, the first syllable. But even, counting those and taking it all together, in a 23-verse psalm, the divine name of God is invoked 11 times. It's almost every other verse. Right? This is a strong petition to God, appealing to him, using that name. Why would it be significant, perhaps, that the psalmist would use that name for God? Yeah.
It's more exalting?
It's more...
Exalting.
Yeah, you could say it's more exalting. Yeah, I think so. I think that it emphasizes God's identity as the sovereign creator of all. Right? It is the name that he gives to himself. It is not a name that we assign to him based on seeing and understanding his attributes as we perceive them, but rather it is the name that he gives to Moses, right? Saying this is who he is, his own self-identification. Right? And knowing that, it is the best and fullest understanding of who he is. Did I see a hand? No? All right. All right, I'm gonna move ahead here a little bit. He talks about what it is that the people are doing, right? Speaks of them specifically as being wicked, being the proud, people that are requiring vengeance, needing this to be paid back. The word is literally used to put something back to the way it was, right? Restoration of the prior situation. He talks about the groups of people or the people that are being affected. They use 4 words of violence, of vigorous action. They are oppressed, they are crushed, they are slain, and they are murdered. But who are these people to whom this is happening? It's a short list. It's right there.
Your people.
Okay, your people. And then there's a second verse with a few more.
The widow, the foreigner, and the fatherless.
The widow, the foreigner, the fatherless. What is significant about these groups of people?
In the society at the time, that was the lowest class.
Yes, they were considered people that did not have the same status as others. Right. So, 3 of them. But the 4th is your people, the people specifically. So we have an interesting collection. The people of God, but we also have specifically called out the widow, the foreigner, and the fatherless. We'll take those last 3 as people that lack protection. Right? The widow has no husband, right, to act on her behalf. The fatherless has no father. And the foreigner lacks standing in Israel because they are not part of category number 1, God's people. So what ties them all together? They have no one to speak for them. There's another step to this, another element that goes a little beyond this. They are specifically the groups of people that are supposed to be then protected. They are under the protection of God. God has extended his protection to these groups of people. 1, to his people specifically and collectively. They are the chosen people. They are the holy people. They are set apart from the world and protected specifically because, as we learn in the larger context, Messiah is coming through this group of people. God's action in the world is going to be carried out through the people of Israel. Jesus will come through them to redeem, to save, to bless the whole world. Therefore, the people of Israel are under the protection of God. In the same way, the widow who has no advocate can call upon God. She has a special status and is supposed to be protected. She is protected both in God's law, to be preserved in a way that would not be possible otherwise in a society where to be an adult male is the way to go. And therefore, she is supposed to be set apart and protected by the people themselves. But failing that, God specifically talks about being able to be called on by those 3 groups to receive justice when they are persecuted. They are the people that God will protect, that God will act on their behalf. So God's people collectively, yeah.
Does that apply to all of Nazareth?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite.
Does that apply to all of Nazareth?
All of Nazareth?
Jesus was from Nazareth, right?
I'm not sure I understand. In terms of being the people of God or?
The underdogs.
Oh, I would have said it would apply to the people of Israel writ large. Not just Nazareth, but everywhere within Israel. Yeah. Again, dealing with the Israel as a collective noun, right, as a body of people, is a little bit difficult because clearly not all of them were saved from the depredations of the enemies of Israel. At different points in time, people died, right? Judah itself was taken away into Babylonian captivity. And this gets into the kind of the second half, well, the latter third of the psalm, where it talks about the discipline of God being necessary for this kind of correction in order to avoid ultimate punishment. That Israel, taken collectively, does survive and it ultimately thrive to bring forth the Messiah, but not each individual person. This is getting into the larger philosophical problem of evil, right? How do we justify or understand the bad things that happen to people that we know in some measure don't deserve that, right? We don't think of them as being deserving of the bad things that happen to them. The answers to this can always feel a little bit glib. They don't feel satisfying. They don't fulfill that emotional need. In some measure, we all deserve things that happen to us. Right? My favorite, putting of this comes from Hamlet, that if you treat any man as he deserves, who will escape a whipping? We are all bad people. We have all done wrong things and deserve God's justice. Instead, we are given his mercy when we seek it and repent. And then as well, that We know that God will set things right. We have to have that faith that God will ultimately put things right. Right? This is going back to that second verse. Pay back to the proud what they deserve. Again, the literal phrase is to put back. Again, the idea of putting something back on a shelf. It's not there, God is going to put it back there. But he's going to do that with the world and with the people. How? I don't know. I don't understand exactly how that works. I'm not God, and I don't comprehend his means, his methods, his mind. I can't see it. But I know that that's what he says. I know that he speaks truthfully. I know that that's what will happen. That it will be put back. God will fix it. I don't see how it can be fixed in every case. How does God fix things? I don't know, but he does. He says he will. He says he will. All right, I've barely gotten to half of this. I'm going to move on a little quickly. This working without my notes is for the birds, let me tell you. I'm not going to do this again. I'm going to start writing things down and bring them with me. The third section of this psalm, as I say, does partake of the idea of a bit of a lament. He speaks in the middle of reminding the wicked, perhaps, or even the people of Israel who do wrong, that God takes note of these things and will act, and that it is incumbent upon us to repent. Right? 9 and 10 talk about the fact that God is not ignorant of what goes on, that he is well aware of this. What's interesting in 11, the word here about the thoughts of man, in the NIV it's futile. The word here is the same one that we get in Ecclesiastes. It's translated vanity, perhaps, in some translations, or meaningless. He knows the thoughts of man. He knows that they are meaningless, would be an alternative translation, because it's the same word. It's just a breath. They're a vapor. Here today, gone tomorrow. It's a smoke. They have no consequence. Right? He knows our thoughts, and they're so irrelevant to the eternal picture that they're described as a meaningless vapor. We can't comprehend the way that he thinks and acts. 14 reminds, again, the wicked, or possibly Israel itself, that God does not reject his own people. Right? What's interesting is it is put in here with the idea of rebuking people or reminding them to take a lesson from the judgment that they receive. If it's for the people that are not part of Israel, if this is for the wicked that oppress them, it's interesting that they would be addressed this way. The idea of them repenting or turning back as a consequence of this. And if it is for the people of Israel, it's interesting that that follows after talking about the people that are doing the wicked oppression. As if that were an internal matter rather than external. You can apply the psalm in multiple different ways. But 16 begins the idea of the lament. Who will rise up for me against the wicked? Who will take a stand for me against evildoers? This is the petition to God, laying out kind of the case or the situation in which he finds himself. I am in a bad situation. I am being oppressed. I need someone to help me. Who is there that will do this? But it's full instead, and unlike a lot of the other laments that we see in Toto, right? It's a full psalm, with a lot of confidence. Most laments go through with a lot of, for lack of maybe better terms, weeping and wailing, the gnashing of the teeth. And at the very end, you get a couple verses of, all right, well, I'm sure God's going to make this turn out okay, right? That expression of confidence. It can sometimes almost feel more pro forma, right? It's there because that's the way you're supposed to write a psalm of lament than being super felt, that I really truly both know this and I feel this in my heart. But instead, he has confidence. He almost immediately switches over in 17 to talking about, hey, God's helped me in the past. God has given me help. Unless he had done so, I would have died. I would have dwelt in the silence of death. God has done this for him in the past already. It's actually not 93, it's 94, just in case anybody's... he talks in 18 about his foot slipping and God supporting him. Even though he is lamenting his situation and needing God's help, he fills these verses with remembering that God has done this in the past and being confident that God will do this again in the future. 19, in the NIV it has anxiety. The actual word here is to talk about his thoughts. He talks about having a large number of thoughts. The NIV goes straight for the translation, not literal, but to translate sense. And I think it is a good one, the idea of anxiety. There's just so many thoughts. There's so many thoughts just tumbling around in his head that he has trouble with them. He can't focus. He can't keep one going, keep his train of thought, follow that thread. Instead, he is assaulted by this jumble of thoughts. It's an idea, I think, a great picture of the anxiety. He talks about having too many thoughts in his head, and then God's consolation restores his joyfulness. Right? God calms the mind, God saves his body, God is there for him in different ways. Whether the affliction is mental or physical. What does verse 20 mean? He has, can a corrupt throne be allied with you? Why put that in here? Why now? What's that mean? This one is not a trick question, unlike the one earlier.
Give it a shot.
Go for
A corrupt throne, which is authority,
it. Yeah.
but he's ruling against God's teachings and laws and so forth. So they do not. He's asking the question, can they work together? You both have authority. Well, no, they cannot, because God can't do wrong. God does not punish and correct you, but he does not abide by evil or wrong.
Yeah. He's making a point, certainly, that people who are corrupt in positions of power lack true authority or justification for doing the things that they do. It's an interesting kind of notion. I joke about the fact that I gave all my kids 4 names, right? You have the standard first, middle, last, but all my kids have 2 middle names. And I joke about the fact that, I did that simply to be an annoyance to all those government form filler-outers and people that want to make you fit in the database. There's just not enough blanks for all their names. It's my way, this is my phrase that I would use, it's my way of putting my thumb in authority's eye. Well, that impulse comes from what? It comes from being an American, right? We live in a place that is founded on the idea of, you can't tell me what to do. You can't tell me what to do. And so as an attitude, an instinctive deference to authority does not always come naturally to us. But it was a lot more natural for them in their time and place. It is a lot more natural for a lot of other people in the world in their time and place. And it is not necessarily wrong, right? You read in places like Romans 13 that we are supposed to be deferent to people in positions of power where we can. We're not supposed to just cause trouble for the sake of causing trouble. I just like the idea of having multiple names, That's not really just trying to cause trouble for guys at the DMV. But this idea then of deferring to authority because it is authority then, if this is the more common attitude for people to have, it's an important reminder to say that just because someone is in a position of power doesn't mean that you have to go along with what they're doing. That God does not support the people that use their power to oppress others. Can a corrupt throne be allied with you, one that brings misery by its decrees? Rhetorical question, the answer to which is no. Just because the king does something terrible doesn't mean that you have to go along with it just because he's the king.
Wrong is wrong no matter what.
Wrong is wrong no matter who you are. Yeah. God fixes right and wrong, and we can adhere to that regardless of what people in positions of power try to tell us. Yeah. It works as a reminder for people who have to obey, but it works equally well as a reminder for anybody in a position of power. Don't get too caught up in the trappings of where you are and what your office is. You can't do whatever you want. You're still bound by the laws of God. Yeah. He goes on to describe in 21 the things they do. They're banding together against the righteous, condemning the innocent to death, and concludes with 22 and 23 that God has become his fortress, God the rock in whom he takes refuge. He will repay them for their sins, destroy them for their wickedness. The Lord our God will destroy them. He returns at the end to the thing that he had at the beginning. He has brought it full circle. His petition in 1, 2, 3 is for God to pay back the evil for what they've done, to restore the world to rightness, and to judge and put vengeance upon those that have done evil. And then he expresses confidence in 22 and 23 that God will provide security for the oppressed and will indeed bring justice to the wicked. Is this a hopeful ending or a frightening ending? That's exactly it. It all depends. Which side are you on? Right? The righteous do not fear justice because they have no need to fear. God will provide justice and they will be all right. We are not righteous except through the power of the blood of Christ. And we can be confident in that blood and making the same sort of prayer for God to come quickly and bring judgment.
It's the blood of Christ that makes us right with God.
Yes.
Not by our own account, but by the sacrifice of Jesus.
Yes. Justified through the sacrifice of Jesus. Yeah. I'll just end with this. I don't have any notes. I was thinking, I don't know if it was actually ever said, this is the problem with dramatic representations of historical events, but in the wonderful movie, The Man for All Seasons, right, it talks about they're interrogating Sir Thomas More, and he rebukes the person who is interrogating him, right? He says, for threatening him like a bully with violence. And so the guy, both very quick-witted, he snaps back and says, well then, how should one threaten someone? He says, well, you should threaten with justice, like someone who is a minister of state. He says, oh, but you are threatened with justice, Sir Thomas. He says, well, in that case, I'm not threatened. He was confident in the rightness of his cause, and he felt no threat from the imposition of justice. That if truly given justice, you'd be fine. And we can have that same confidence when faced with the threats of the world. We can ask for justice and be confident. All right, I've used my time successfully. If that's all I was trying to do, I suppose. But questions, comments? I know this was a little bit more disjointed. I did an awful lot more monologuing, so then I have my notes and all those questions I intended to ask. Things I skipped past, things I didn't touch on. 23 verses. It's a lot to cover in one sitting. Anyone? All right, well, I will have my notes one way or another for Psalm 95, and we will talk about that next week. Thank you.